Reading Psychiana Lesson 6 by Dr. Frank B. Robinson, June the 25th, 1930, when he wrote this. In this lesson we are to deal with the very sweetest character that ever graced history's pages. None ever lived on this earth or in any other earth who could have even approached this man we are here to discuss. From the standpoint of sweetness of character, or from any other standpoint, I am talking about Jesus, the carpenter of Galilee. And oh, how the human heart of me thrills at the prospect of writing 3 whole lessons about my best pal, for we have been pals for a long time now, and we shall be pals as long as this world lasts, and then, on the other side also, we shall be pals. It will be a different sort of friendship when the last enemy of man is destroyed and when there is no more death. That friendship will continue throughout myriads of ages, when there shall be no more time, and when you and I are again restored to that same spiritual existence that our forefathers had in the garden before they chose to doubt the word of the living God. You and I and many millions more have discovered to our sorrow that it did not pay to doubt the spoken word of that mighty life spirit of God. And had Adam and Eve back yonder known what the awful consequences would have been, as you and I know what they are, they would have thought a second time before believing any outside suggester, as they did. It is just as disastrous believing any outside suggester as they did. No, it is just as disastrous to doubt that same life force, spirit, now, as it was then. And I trust that before this course is finished, that my students will have learned the utter foolishness of ever again doubting this great presence, whose power is so unmistakably right here and now. But the lesson had to be learned, and so it is that you and I were plunged through the act of another, into a world as different as night from day from the first creation of it. However, in passing, may I say to my students that they may depend upon it that at the right time and in the right manner, that state of existence will be restored once more. And it may be that a far more radiant state of existence than that will be manifested. Eye hath not seen, ear hath not heard, neither hath it entered into the heart of man the things that this mighty life spirit hath prepared for those that love or know him, for to know him is to love him. People sometimes ask me if I believe that we shall know each other in heaven. You will never be in heaven as it is generally understood today, my friend. The heaven that God created is the entire space outside of this earth. The stars are in heaven, and the sense that God is everywhere, then he is in heaven. But in no other sense. He is not in some place where there is any physical existence of any sort. Neither is he preparing a place for us, if by that we mean any residence for us as we are manifestly here in the flesh. The physical part of us must die, and it is a good thing that it must. God help the human race if they ever were to find eternal life as purely fleshly beings. I, for one, would not want to be alive on the earth in that state of affairs if that state of affairs ever happened. But it won't. The mighty wisdom of the mighty life spirit prohibited that. Moses' language was that man was driven out of the garden, and flaming swords of fire placed there to prevent his return into it. If he were telling the story today, he would say God made an immutable law that man must die in order to get rid of his body of flesh, in order that he might once more be in a condition and a position to re-enter the spiritual state of existence. The Bible tells us that flesh and blood cannot enter into the kingdom of heaven. For sure they cannot. That which is flesh, and that which is spirit, and they can never mix. That is what is meant when we are told that this body is sown a corruptible body and raised a spiritual body. It is also simple when the revelation of the living God shines upon it. We have seen how that God is spirit, and while a physical manifestation was brought about by the unbelief or doubt or sin of our forefathers in the garden, it is neither essential nor desirable that this physical existence continue, and it will not continue either after this earth and its inhabitants are once more manifesting on the same plane on which they manifested prior to the fall. What a thought, and how different from what we have been taught about this mighty life spirit, this mighty God. What a pity it is that the entire human race is so superstitious. You will remember one of the apostles walking along the road away back yonder, seeing a sign with wording on it, "To the unknown God." He said to them that he saw that in all things they were too superstitious. Then he called their attention to the sign and said to them, "He whom ye ignorantly worship, the same declare I unto you." And the same identical things exist today. Jesus understood it when he stood on the side of one of the hills he loved so well, and with tears streaming down his face said, "O Jerusalem, how oft would I have gathered you, even as a hen gathereth her chickens under her wing, but you would not." And so it is today. For 2,000 years the message, as the Galilean carpenter came to proclaim it, has fallen upon superstitious ears, made superstitious by their own interpretation of what the living God should be. Superstition reigned supreme in the hearts of the Christians in the carpenter's time, and it reigns supreme today in the hearts of Christians. They must have a God who is in the sky. They must have a God whose power will be made manifest in the future. They must have a God whose reward is in heaven. No wonder the Galilean carpenter died of a broken heart. No wonder at all. And I am not ashamed of the fact that, as I write this, the eyes are beginning to dim, as into my inmost self steals a feeling of utter peace, a feeling of joy that cannot be explained nor understood, a feeling of power that this world as it is cannot know. And if I may be pardoned for alluding to it in this course of instruction, let me say to you that it is in just such moments as this, when the mighty life spirit makes his presence so vividly felt, that he is to me the most precious thing in the entire world. It is in just such moments as this that I can command disease and sickness to leave the afflicted bodies, and have it do so, for the sense veil seems to be temporarily lifted. And I know beyond any shadow of doubt whereof I am speaking when I say to you that the actual presence of this living God right here and now in us, all about us, is the most dynamic power in the universe today, bar none. There is no question about its presence, and every student of mine may actually contact and know this living power if he will do as I try to tell him. Never fear that this mighty dynamic power cannot be known to you, and never fear that it will fool you. Not a sparrow can fall to the ground without this power. And are ye not of much more value than many sparrows? I think so. And so it is that the carpenter and I are pals and love each other. And why should I not love him? Was it not he who first preached the message of the actual living presence of the mighty God power? Was it not he who first brought the story to this earth? And was it not the same story, and that story alone, which made it possible for me to know the actual presence, the living, marvelous presence of this mighty God we are learning about? None other was qualified to make such a revelation as he was, and had not that revelation been made, I should never have been able to learn the way, and neither would you, for that matter, or anyone else.